Yeah!
Yo, 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 yo. What's up, my primates? Aiden Prime here, and today we're back with another video. So this video is gonna be a lot different. We're not playing the game, we're talking about it. So we're just gonna be diving deep into the dirt, literally, because we're gonna be talking about one of the most beloved multiplayer shooters of all gaming history. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare versus Garden Warfare 2. It was two games, the same exact concept, but very, very different experiences. Over the next half hour, we're gonna be just breaking down the history behind each game, class by class analysis, balance in the meta, the visual and audio design of it, and then like the community feedback, and then now like what ultimately makes the game better than the other. So let's just strap in and get this ultimate Garden Warfare just going. Let's just get this going. Development and history. So let's rewind. So Garden Warfare 1 was announced right around in 2013, and it shocked everyone. PvC has always been like, the casual, just basic tower defense game. Nobody expected a third person shooter to come out of it. It happened out of nowhere. And but then Garden Warfare 1 dropped in 2014, and it was just a breath of fresh air. The art was just vibrant, the gameplay was just amazing, the tone, it was just pure PopCap. Goofy, it was extremely goofy, which is what made the game itself just amazing in its own way. But it was competitive at the same time, right? I have memories, I have memories of staying up till 3 in the morning at the age of like 7 or 6, playing this game and not getting any sleep on a school night. And this was my childhood game. I played this game every single day as a child, and this was my first ever game. And it was just such a good time. And but then fast forward a couple years, and then Garden Warfare was released, and it was an answer to, I guess, the fans' demand, which was more content, new characters, solo play, in a much larger world. And that meant like much larger maps in general, but also much like maybe more different stuff for let's just say the HQ, right? As many know, it was completely different. It was the same exact game, but it was just completely different, which is what I think made the game just perfect the way it is. It was so similar to the first one, which everyone loved, but it had its own little peaks. I had more maps and everything like that. So they were clearly aiming higher, but the question is, did they fly too close to the sun? As many say. Gameplay, core, and then the combat flow. So both games are built on the same foundation. They're like, as I said, they're it's third person. It's objective based, like as turf takeover, and gnome bomb. So 4v4 versus 12v12. Character variants, the wacky abilities, and then of course the actual character customization, which made the game so different than every other thing, right? There was really nothing truly like Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 1. There was nothing like it, but it made the games feel different on how they just completely did it. This is why I think the two games themselves were just perfect. Garden Warfare 1 was just a lean and sharp, every shot matters type of game. Positioning is just everything. While, Garden Warfare 2 is, a faster, looser, flashier game with more speed, more confusion, but also more freedom, right? It just comes down to preference. If you like tight team fights, Garden Warfare 1 might just be your game. You know, and if you like mayhem and expression, I think Garden Warfare 2 is what opens that sandbox. It brings out everything and everybody. This is why I truly think though that Garden Warfare 1 and Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 2, I think they're almost even in just rating generally, because I think it just depends on the person. Both games are just amazing. They truly are. So now we have class by class analysis, right? So we have the Garden Warfare 1 plants, which was the pea shooter, the sunflower, the cactus, and the chomper. And then on the zombie side, you had the foot soldier, the scientist, the engineer, and the all-star. You know, each class had right around 3 to 5 variants, each with the slightest twist in speed, damage, or status effects. Which is what also gave them just completely different stuff. It was basically almost like Overwatch, but just I feel like more, just kind of like more versatile. And then Garden Warfare 2, they added some new characters, right? They added 3 new characters on each side. So you had on the plant side, you had the Rose, which was more of a support and debuffer. The Citron was more of a tank, and then Colonel Corn was just a ranged DPS, right? Which is what every side was lacking at this point. So they basically added the same exact thing to the other side. The on the zombie side they had Super Brains, which was the more or less the brawler, Captain Deadbeard, sniper, and then the imp, a basically a glass cannon, right? And you know, that's what is so important about both these games is that they both had perfect class setups, but with the Garden Warfare 2, you had more, just more everything. You had more customization. You had a lot more stuff in Garden Warfare 2, right? So, you know, there's a variant explosion here over 100, you know, 100 just customizations, everything like this. It was just a really good game. So, you know, Garden Warfare 2, as I said, gave us more tools, but the also was more imbalance, right? Rose on launch could stun lock entire teams, right? The Imps mech was nearly like unstoppable, right? Like on launch, these guys were just insane. You know, the toxic variants in both games dominated, like absolutely dominated low tier lobbies. You know, because of that little splash stuff they got and the like the near when you're a near toxic person, then you would get that toxic effect, right? So, you know, it was kind of like you know, Garden Warfare's once smaller roster made the class ups much more clear, right? And Garden Warfare 2 variety made it much more harder to balance because you no longer had that just the balancedness of 4 versus 4. And they kind of made it towards like one side had more or less support than the other side, and one side more had more damage. So, you know, it was extremely hard to just make it balanced in general. And that's why on release the game was just completely unbalanced. Um and it was just insanely. So, but here's like the question: do you prefer clarity or like creative chaoticness? Right. That's the real question. Also, with when discussing classes. All right. So with Garden Warfare is 1, we're talking more or less about meta patches, and balance. So, you know, let's just dig right into that. So with Garden Warfare 1's meta, you know, it evolved all around basically pea shooters like just camping, the scientists flanking with warp, cactus drone kills, and then the all-star spam. But you know, EA at this point kept things more like fairly even with frequent updates. Like, you know, nothing ever felt like too broken, I guess, for too long. They were updating extremely fast just because they wanted to do that. You know, and then Garden Warfare 2 on the other hand, you know, the Rose was nerfed 3 times. Electro Brains was just reigned as a monster. You know, Infinity Time got nerfed due to XP abuse. And even party variants were inconsistent. So, you know, like this was just like a completely like on launch game. It was completely unfair. If you had if you're running any of those people, it was just unfair. You know, like the power creep in Garden Warfare 2 just made it harder for new players to jump into it. You know, and veterans knew which variants to abuse, and then the new players got, you know, completely just ran over, right? And people knew this because, you know, there were guys playing Garden Warfare 1 when kids weren't even born yet. You know what I mean? Like they weren't even born yet when Garden Warfare 1 came out, and you know they knew what characters to play. You know, toxic as I said beforehand, that it was just completely insane. Um, yeah, maps and environments. So maps in Garden Warfare 1 were some of the best design maps in gaming, just in the game franchise itself. I would say in gaming history, they were one of the best design maps. You know, it brought just a clean look and it was just completely just amazing on how what they did with the maps. You had Suburbia, Driftwood Shores, Soundboss Estate, all the featured strong lanes and balanced objectives, and then Garden Warfare 2 then went bigger and more vertical with maps like Seeds of Time, like which was like the dinosaur time chaos, the Z Tech Factory, which was just that was an awesome game, and then Moonbase Z, which was like more or less gravity and just kind of doing more stuff, but more space, which would equal mean more snipers, harder choke defense. Some maps felt like more cinematic moments, but like not as competitive, not a competitive balance. And and don't forget like the Backguard Battlegrounds, Garden Warfare 2 Open World Hub. This right here, it was so good. I loved it so much because I used to do split screen with my friends and my younger siblings when they would come over, and we would play this game. And man, I still talk about this game with one of my friends to this day, and he remembers it, and he said that was one of the best games ever, right? And I think that's why it depends on how you feel with this game, because it just depends on memories and everything like that, right? It was great for just solo play, side missions, but like you could also get stuff like rewards, um, and not to mention the little side quests with the characters, like when you can go into each character's thing, like in their little base and everything like that. That was such a cool add-on, and I loved that so much. It was just so good. And but some players, they just wanted the menu. They just wanted the menu and the play button, like Garden Warfare 1, which is completely understandable. They didn't want to have to go through all the extra work just to get into a game. And it was definitely like hard to understand like what exactly was going on at first, because they're like, "Oh, where do I go? Where do I go to play the game?" Right? So it was definitely just like if you're a new player, again, you probably love the thing. You probably love the game. If you're older, you might not have liked it as much. It's just simple as that. So now we have audio and visual design, which was Garden Warfare 1 was more of a clean UI, more colorful but minimal, and it was easier to read the battlefield itself, because it was so small. It was so much smaller that you could actually like kind of look into, like, looking around and everything like that. Like when I was overplaying these games, like the clips you see now, I had fun with both games, right? But I feel like Garden Warfare 1 was just more faster paced. It was just way more fun. I didn't spend as much time having to get into a game than Garden Warfare 2, and I had to spend like almost 5 minutes just loading into a game, right? And I was also gonna bring this up with the good thing about Garden Warfare 2 is there's still a big fan base. But when I'm playing Garden Warfare 1, I'm not gonna lie, there was a good amount of people still playing, right? And it was actually very, very fun to play because there were people playing the game still. So and then with Garden Warfare 2, there was more effects, like brighter colors and particle spam, like during bigger fights, which was kind of interesting to say the least. Some people felt that Garden Warfare 2 was more cluttered visually, which is completely understandable, right? And yeah, I mean, really, it was completely understandable. So now, as for design, my bad. Both games just instantly nailed it. I mean, really, PVZ or yeah, PVZ and just in general had always amazing sound cues. Whatever game it was, they had some really good sound cues. They always went good with just the sound cues in general. Garden Warfare 1, I think, actually was what hit the nail on the hammer right there, because they're the ones that came up with it, right? Like the cactus saying "ew," like when you went to like the game and you left, it said "ew," which is just a fun little design to add for the game itself, right? It was a very just the sound cues in this game were just amazing, and with like the pea shooters pew pew, right, and like them's like high pitched voice like lines, it was just perfect. It was so iconic, and I still remember all of this today. And then, like when I was overplaying this game, um, it was so fun. It brought back so many memories of just playing this game, and the music Garden Warfare 1 had more of a like ambient, relaxed soundtrack, while Garden Warfare 2's was more energetic and like electronic, but sometimes overwhelming. You know what I mean? Which I think is what Garden Warfare 2 wanted. It was known for being bigger and more chaos and everything like that, and it says that like in its game, like it's bigger and more chaos and then bigger, and I think that's what they wanted with their music. So now we have popularity, community, and then the legacy. So now this is where like things just get interested in general. In Garden Warfare 1, it was praised for being like a fresh, polished multiplayer shooter, without like microtransactions on launch, which is what everybody appreciated a lot about the game. And it's built on a almost a cult following for like, years because of Plants vs Zombies 1 and 2. Like the mobile games before that. And then Garden Warfare 2 had more of a marketing content and just more. It had more criticism, you can say, because the everything just with it felt more of a like microtransaction and just a more pay to win game. The balance was just more chaotic, and I'm gonna mention a game that I don't even like to mention, which was you could probably guess, Battle for Neighborville. Its sequel that never lived up to really anything. It was actually a really fun game in my honest opinion. It was very fun actually. Like on release, it was a very cool game. I liked it a lot. And but later on, I just lost interest. And I think that's what happened with everybody else is they liked the game at first, I think, and then just lost they just lost interest. That is what was with Garden Warfare and Garden Warfare 2 is that they kept the interest of everybody playing. But Garden Warfare 2 now has a way stronger player base. Today, you can boot it up in 2025, as I said, and just find matches almost instantly. But you can still do that in Garden Warfare 1. You can still find matches. You might have to get a little bit lucky. But like when I went into a game and I looked for a game, I almost got into one instantaneously, right? And there's like people keeping it alive, and it's starting to blow up more on TikTok. And the new game just released, also not released. The trailer for it released, and I pre-ordered that, of course. And it looks just insane. I'm hoping that PVC makes an actual comeback finally. So the final verdict and the wrap up, of course. So after all that, which one is better? So in Garden Warfare 1, the balance is way better, but the content and modes is kind of more limited. The visual clarity is a lot cleaner. The community, as I said, is almost gone. It mainly went to Garden Warfare 2 because of maybe the possibility of having new updates out, but it's still possible to have people playing the game. The meta and class design. It was very good. It was very good. And then solo play. There's really nothing strong and crazy about the solo play in Garden Warfare 1. You can play it solo, of course, but like there was more fun for somebody playing solo in Garden Warfare 2 because of the little HQ, right? So with my personal favorite, I would have to say Garden Warfare 2. I mean, it's just the better overall package, my honest opinion, to play now. But Garden Warfare 1 is, more refined, it's balanced, it's focused in the game, in the series. And, I think it kind of just depends on your personal preference. I don't think either or is better to like by standards, I mean, if you're chasing just a clean gameplay and nostalgia, Garden Warfare 1 is going to be for you. It's going to be for you. But if you want like more chaos and creativity, like in a more bang with the I guess with your buck, Garden Warfare 2 wins, right? So, it honestly just depends on what you think at the end of the day. But all right, I'm gonna have to leave it here though. If y'all, it's time to choose your side though. I mean, if you want Team Garden Warfare 1, drop your comments down below, or if you're Team Garden Warfare 2, just drop them down below. Your favorite characters and your best VZ memories just in general. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell if you want more in-depth retrospects and gaming breakdowns and PVZ content from hope y'all didn't hear that. I farted. From yours truly. I'll catch you the next time in the the backyard. And as always, stay tuned. All right.